Hi, my name is Dylan. Welcome to my channel. Before we get started, just want to say a couple things. So this is going to be a coaching session. I'm going to be coaching Jaya, is that how you pronounce your name? All right.
Yep.
And so I'm a coach. I'm not a therapist or medical professional. I'm not, this is not curing anything. If you have a real struggle, please see a medical professional because that's not me. Um, that being said, let's get going. So kind of what do you want to work on today? What's on your mind?
That's a really good question, Dylan. First of all, thanks for having me here, and I am looking forward to what comes up during this session. Um, I think some things that have been on my mind have been exploring my attachment patterns, and especially as I go back into the world of dating after a long time, because we've been in lockdown for a really long time here in Melbourne, and I only started studying attachment related stuff at the start of this year. And so prior to this year, I didn't really know anything about attachment theory, but it's kind of, it feels like it's opened a lot of doors for me in terms of my self awareness and self healing. So I guess now as I walk back into the world of dating, I'm kind of thinking about, I wonder how my attachment style plays into this. And I wonder how I can, do this in a more healthy way than I've done in the past.
Hmm. Can I ask you
Mm.
what is your attachment style?
So mainly FA, but anxious leaning.
Okay, all right.
In the past, I've found myself drawn to more avoidant types.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I'm FA fairly secure leaning. But yeah, awesome.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
I should add, I am fairly secure at the moment. I think I've like done a lot of work to get here,
yeah,
but
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
think it's just I haven't really explored this in the context of relationships for a while.
Hmm.
So in friendships, I'm pretty secure, but relationships is, I guess, a whole different ball game.
So people who are on the FA side, from what I've seen, kind of like swap back and forth a little bit some of the time. Do you find that you swap back and forth, or do you mostly stay on the anxious side?
I do swap back and forth. I used to be very unaware of the swapping back and forth until recently.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I was very aware of the anxious side and very unaware of the avoidant side. And I think it was only a couple of times recently when it was brought to my notice that, hey, you're doing the whole switching off, deactivating thing. And I was like, no, wait, I don't do that. No, wait, I do that. What?
Cool, cool. Okay. So what were you thinking about, or what questions or what did you want to explore?
Well, one of the questions that came up for me, which feels quite significant, is when I'm looking at dating or speaking to new people through an attachment lens, I find a lot of the work ends up going into my head instead of how it feels,
Hmm.
because a lot of the feelings are not just the straightforward, oh, I like this person, this is great. I don't like this person, this is great kind of thing. It's kind of like, oh, I'm drawn to this person. Is this because I'm sensing that they're possibly emotionally available and I find that safe? And then
Hmm.
it goes back into my head, like, what's the actual reasoning here? And I find, um, I don't know if this makes sense, but I kind of want to have a more organic emotional experience rather
Hmm.
than having to calculate everything through the lens of my rational thought. Like,
Hmm.
does that make sense?
So I guess a question that kind of comes up is why are you calculating it through your rational thought?
I think because I'm really nervous about getting it wrong. Because I'm just like, yeah, I've learned all this stuff about myself. I don't want to undo the work by, getting into a space where it's driven more by patterns of what I've seen, the relationships that were modeled for me, as well as the relationship patterns I've had in the past. And, I don't want to get into that sort of situation again. So I'm possibly overthinking it.
Hmm. Okay. I can understand not wanting to get into old patterns. Um, to me, when I kind of hear what you're saying, I kind of hear like I mean, when you say you don't want to do it wrong, or to me that kind of seems like overprotecting kind of in the other direction. Because I guess in an ideal setting, like from a secure point of view, it's like you get it wrong and then you break up and then you go do it again. So is there, what I guess what is the fear about going into a relationship and it not working out?
That's a really good question, Dylan. I feel like I possibly don't trust myself to have the strength to break up if I'm really invested. I think that's probably my anxious side.
Okay.
Because I think I tend to possibly stay in relationships too long.
Okay.
Mhm.
I definitely can understand that. And also, I think it can also be kind of a hard thing to work on when you're afraid of trying something out because you're afraid of the possible consequences from trying that thing out,
Yeah,
which makes it's challenging. So then you're overthinking everything. But then the overthinking is also, to me, sounds like it is a result of the anxiety, which means so no matter what, you're kind of affected by this pattern.
that makes sense.
So what's stopping you from, I mean, so at the beginning of the a call, you said you're kind of approaching security, you're becoming more secure. What does that mean? Like, does that mean that you're feeling more secure or you're gaining more trust in yourself?
Both of those things. I definitely trust myself a lot more. I definitely enjoy my own company a lot more. I don't feel the need to be completed by another person or, that
Hmm.
sort of thing. So there's definitely a sense of if I'm going to date, I'm going to date because I'm choosing to date, not because I feel that I have to,
Hmm.
and not because I feel like, life isn't complete without it. So I think that's kind of where I'm at in that. Yeah, it's just I'm trying to find the right words here. My brain isn't properly working.
It's
um,
okay. It's okay.
yeah,
I'll maybe you can think about that and I'll talk about something. So when I kind of look at my own dating patterns, I mean, I can go back the last 20 years and look at various people I dated, and reflecting on it now, I can see like, oh, like I was really insecure right there. My FA qualities were really coming out. I was hot and I was cold, and like I was really into it, and then I was like really not, but then I was too insecure to like leave the relationship, and I kind of could see these patterns like circling around, and then that relationship would end, and there were some in there where maybe not the best relationships. I'm sure the person I was dating would probably felt the same. um, but if I look at it, as I became more secure, I still fell into some of the same patterns, but they got a little bit better each time. So I guess what I'm saying is like I can understand you not wanting to fall into these old patterns, but also if the pattern is there, maybe there's still something in there that for you to become more secure, you need to work out. And if you kind of like stay away from engaging on that level, you may never be able to work that out. And to me, it kind of sounds like a little bit of avoidance when you're kind of staying away from something because you don't want to figure out what the lesson is within that relationship.
that makes a lot of sense. I really see the value in that observation because, yeah, I think you're right. Like to move away from a pattern, I need to engage with the pattern till it's ready to,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
uh, dissipate from healing rather than from avoidance. I can definitely see that I am avoiding making mistakes.
Hmm.
But at the same time, if that's just where I'm at right now, maybe that's something that I need to do. Maybe I need to be open to making mistakes or um, exploring what it is about my instincts that
Mhm.
takes me through that. Maybe it's just, yeah, doing the work of actually going through that process and healing from within rather than healing in my head.
Yeah, yeah, because you can only do so much kind of from a distance. The other thing that this kind of makes me think about is I've just talked to a lot of people who really have this mindset that like I want to be in a relationship. I want to be engaged. I want to be married. I want to have a child. And these things seem like they're like this sequential, super permanent like concept. Like I'm dating someone, it has to become a relationship. Then and I think this idea that the next one has to be so important, or that I wasted the last like year of my life with this person because it didn't turn into having children and growing old together, is a mindset that can put a lot of pressure onto people to making sure the next one is perfect, as opposed to, well, I haven't quite figured everything out yet, and I don't know. Like you meet someone, excuse me, you meet someone you don't really know kind of how they're going to be 2 years from now. They could be absolutely amazing right now, and then like in a year or in 6 months, you could just see that they're not actually putting any real work into themselves within the relationship, and it could be time to leave. And maybe that was the lesson that you had to learn before you kind of went on to the next one. And I guess in my mind, the easier one feels about kind of the better one feels about leaving a relationship if it doesn't work, kind of the safer it is to go out and like try a relationship.
That makes a lot of sense. I really like how you talked about the timeline that people set for themselves and the contrast between seeing that as just, an experience versus seeing it as, oh, I wasted my last year
Yeah.
because that one didn't work out. Because I can definitely relate to that not being the case for me at the moment, where I'm definitely not looking for, the perfect relationship or like these goals, because I've been married in the past and I think I've had a lot of, um, yeah, I've gone through that and I've kind of seen how that isn't always practical. And, you know, um, like I'm grateful for the good things that happened in
Hmm.
the marriage and stuff, but at the same time I'm happy that I moved on and I'm happy that I moved forward with um having more realistic expectations for myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
um and I also see how at the same time as not subscribing to that model, at the same time I am putting too much pressure on the next thing to be perfect, or at least for me to be perfect in the next thing. So it's like,
Hmm.
even though I'm not necessarily counting on it to last forever, I'm not counting on it to result in big, meaningful things. I'm still very much not wanting to show up as less than perfect, which
Yeah.
is an interesting way to think about it, because it's like, why is perfection so important? Why am I
Yeah.
putting so much weight on that?
Yeah. Yeah. So is kind of your fear about the future not so much about your partner, but more kind of about yourself being perfect?
Yeah, yeah, definitely, because it's
Mm.
about knowing that if I continue in old patterns, for example, then I have a tendency to, I guess, in the past, with my anxious side triggered by, more avoidant patterns in the other person,
Hmm.
I've found myself losing myself in a relationship,
Mm.
and I think that's one of the things I really want to avoid, because I feel like I've worked so hard on my own
Hmm.
outside the context of a relationship. I don't want to get back into a relationship and lose that again.
Mm.
So that's one of the ways in which I want to make sure that I stay secure, but at the same time, I don't want to not give it my best.
Hmm.
And so I don't want to keep myself deliberately outside in order to keep myself whole. Like it's a strange sort of and I guess it's all really big in my head because it's so theoretical right now.
Hmm.
But I need to be open to doing the work and actually practically entering into that space.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So this might be just like slightly cheesy. But one of my favorite quotes is one from Michael Jordan, and I hope I'm not getting this wrong. But essentially, I believe what he said was that he fails more times than most people will ever try.
I like that. I like that a lot.
And it's kind of like, I want to do the best that I can right now. And in the future, I want to do the best that I can. So I might fail. Like my failures are where I get to where I succeed. It's a lot harder to tell exactly why I succeeded. Like, was it just like a bunch of different factors that came together magically and everything worked out? Or did I do something specific? And maybe sometimes you can kind of tell. But like if I fail, and then often it's a lot easier to kind of pinpoint, well, this was the factor, this was kind of the reason why. So like those are the things where I can improve in the future. And I can understand you not wanting to lose yourself into the next partner. But my guess is even if you do kind of lose yourself into the next partner, you'll have more awareness around it this time than you did last time, because you've seen the pattern before. And maybe, I mean, maybe you have to lose yourself into the next partner, but you have to do it in a way where you can kind of watch yourself from a different perspective so that you can see a different part of the pattern that you weren't aware of before.
That's
I don't know.
really cool. No, I really see how you're saying that. I really see the value in failing with awareness rather than
Yeah.
not learning from the failures. And I like that quote. That's a really good quote. I fail more times than most people even try. And it's like, yeah, the more I try, like I think you're right. The key is probably awareness because
Hmm.
if I'm not learning, if I'm not watching, then the patterns are going to keep repeating themselves without growth. But if I'm watching, then I will see different angles of those patterns and I will see more of myself through the patterns that I'm, um, you know, showing up with. And I think that that information is probably going to be the key to growing from it.
Hmm.
I really like that.
Okay, I agree. So I like that. I like that. So I guess the kind of, let's go back to the start of like, how do you feel about entering a relationship now? Do you feel any different now than when we started the conversation?
I'm feeling less pressure. I'm
Okay.
feeling like I'm putting less pressure on myself to be perfect. Like I feel
Okay.
like I feel
Yeah.
like it's okay to just be me, and it's just okay to allow my instincts to show up, even if they're not always like it. Yeah, it's you know, I've had unhealthy relationship patterns in the past. In some ways, if that instinct pops up again, it's not something to avoid. It's just something to observe, and it's something to process as I work through it practically. I
Hmm.
think, and I think that's where I'm at right now.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Because I guess in my mind, like I have like whole layers of coping systems, and like I might work through some of it, but then I'm probably gonna have to go through some more circles before I kind of go through the rest of it. And I probably have a lifetime in front of me to kind of figure this stuff out. And it can be a while before one kind of finds a relationship that they can kind of forgive their own mistakes in, as well as find a partner who's willing to work on their mistakes. So that there's enough kind of work on both sides to make the whole thing like a viable project, like project, long-term project, I guess I should say. But those short-term projects can be really healthy and can be really beneficial for both parties. Not necessarily always fun. And sometimes it takes a while to figure out where those benefits are, but yeah.
No, I like that. I like that a lot. And I feel like that's a perspective I don't hear enough in my circles. I don't hear that enough, I guess, in the world that I
Hmm.
inhabit somehow. But I like hearing that perspective. It's really helpful and it's calming.
Okay, that's good. That's good. Um, so where are you on this question? Do you feel like your question was answered? Do you have more thoughts on it?
I feel like the question was answered pretty well, actually. I feel like I've definitely like in my head, the question was probably this big chaotic jumble of
Mm,
oh no, and now it's
yeah.
kind of like, oh, I see, it's kind of detangled a little bit, and now it's like I can see it and I can sort of
Okay.
appreciate it for where it is. So
All
yeah,
right.
thank you
Cool,
for that.
cool. Yeah, definitely. Do you have any other thoughts or questions for today's session? Or
Um,
should we stop here?
Either way, I'm happy to stop here. I'm happy to keep going.
I mean, if you have anything else, we have more time.
Okay. Well, Dylan, I'm interested in hearing your thoughts on this. How do you know when you're ready to get back into dating if you're not feeling a need to date, but an openness to it?
Hmm.
Like that's where I'm at right now. Because on the one hand, I do like the thought of practically getting into it and, like
Mhm.
working on things practically that I've been working on in my head so far.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm also happy on my own. So,
I guess when I hear that, the thing that kind of comes up for me is just the idea that maybe the steps you're looking at aren't small enough. Because if kind of the idea in my head is that I'm going to go from not dating to dating, that can be like climbing up say climbing onto the top of a house. And that could be really challenging for me to just kind of like jump up there, and maybe with a lot of effort, if I feel really determined, I can go for it. But if I kind of start thinking of it in terms of a step ladder, or maybe a ladder, and what are like kind of the little steps there, and doing the little steps might kind of motivate me to start taking those next steps. And I might find that I get up to that third step and I don't really want to go further for a while. But if my choice is to go from the bottom to the top, it can be a lot harder. So I guess the question in my mind is like, what are some small steps you could take towards dating to kind of feel into it?
that's a really good question. And I think you've basically hit the nail on the head because I I'm just realizing as I hear you speak, I don't think of it in terms of small steps. It does feel like a really big, intimidating thing in my head.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I am pretty much drawing a blank in terms of what the smaller steps are. Well,
Okay. So what's
yeah.
the big step?
Um, so like when I get on the apps, for example,
Hmm.
um, I find myself immediately looking for, I guess, connection.
Hmm.
And like if like I think I feel discouraged pretty quickly if there's not a connection because it's like it has to be instant or it's not there.
Hmm. Hmm.
But at the same time, I know that it's so easy for people to just have an off day
Hmm.
and not really get into that conversation. And so I guess I don't really know. I don't really know how to approach the smaller steps. Um,
Well, maybe let's look at that a little bit. Can I ask what apps you're using?
or just the usual ones, Hinge and Bumble and that sort of thing.
Okay, cool, cool. So with Bumble, it's the guys have to start the conversation.
No, the women do.
Sorry, that's what I meant to say. Yeah. So women start the conversation in Bumble. How is it for you starting the conversation?
It's pretty easy. Like I'm happy to send the first message and
And what type of message do you get back?
um it's funny. A lot of times I don't get a message back or I get like just really weird messages back. But
Hmm.
there are some people that, send nice messages back as well. So yeah, just it's like it ranges from, people that are not really looking for a person,
Hmm.
versus, you know, people that just don't respond, so I can't tell what they're thinking.
Hmm.
And then there's people that are, happy to start a conversation, have a conversation.
Hmm. And you're saying, so with the people who are ready to have like a conversation, you just haven't felt any connection with them?
Um, I think I find it hard to judge what sort of connection to expect, or to, like, even, I guess, what's an appropriate timeline for what kind of conversation. Because sometimes a conversation will feel like it's moving too fast, another time a conversation will feel like it's not going anywhere. And I'm just like, am I just putting way too much pressure on this whole thing? How to,
Where,
like,
I guess, where's the pressure?
probably just in my head.
Okay.
I
The,
feel like the pressure
yeah.
is really in my head in terms of, I want to do this right, and I'm fairly new to this, and I don't
Mhm.
really, like, it feels kind of like the world has moved on so much, because I've been in a, really long relationship before this, and
Mhm.
I kind of feel like I have so much catching up to do in terms of all these unspoken expectations, or, it's kind of even just navigating this whole thing. It feels really big in my head. It probably isn't as big as I'm making it out to be, but
Yeah, I mean, I guess in my mind, the ideal situation is like go on Hinge, go on Bumble, and chat some people up. And if there's no connection there, there's no connection there, and if there is, there is. Um, and Bumble also something where it's kind of a limited amount of time before you have to like exchange information?
not exchanging information, but you have to message. Both people have to message within the first 24 hours of matching.
Okay, but once you've started messaging, there's no limited amount of time you can. Okay, all right, that's good. My misunderstanding. So I guess in my mind, it's kind of like when I've had conversations with people on Tinder, it's been one of those things where like I have a conversation, and then maybe the next day I say hi again, and then if we talk a little bit, and then the next day we end up like talking again, or maybe even a couple of days go by and we end up having another conversation again. And if I keep having conversations with this person and it seems like there's something interesting there over time, it seems like, okay, well, this is someone probably worth investing a little bit of time into. And if instead they like very quickly want to just like meet up, for me that doesn't feel so comfortable. I think for some people they like to meet up really quickly. I'm not one of those people. I want to see what happens when it gets kind of boring, and see if the conversation can kind of come back, because I feel like that mimics what a real relationship is like, because it's not always going to be exciting with a partner. They have to be able to come back from kind of, I don't want to say nothing, but like kind of, yeah. Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense, and that actually specifically addresses one of the things that have been floating around in my head in relation to, is that a good sign? Is that a bad sign? Is that a normal sign? Is that just something that happens? And yeah, just even knowing how to think about that and how to approach that. And I think I like how you said it mimics what a real relationship would be
Yeah,
like, in that you would have different moods and different phases in it, and wouldn't always be exciting and super connected, and
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
Hmm.
And also in my mind, it's also just very low key, because these apps allow you to connect to just like tons of people. And if like most of them end up going away, like that's fine. I mean, you can only date so many people, like even in a lifetime.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so I don't, so I guess where does the pressure come from? Does that kind of address some of the pressure? Is there other pressure you're feeling?
No, I think that addresses some of it. I think what I'm noticing is, like, as you speak, I'm noticing that I'm very quick to run away in the initial
Hmm.
stages,
Hmm.
and very slow to run away when it's more invested. And I think that's probably
Mm,
what I need to possibly work on, or possibly think about, um,
yeah.
in terms of, is there a way to just not think about it in terms of running away versus not running away?
Hmm.
Like,
Hmm. Yeah. Well, I mean, why early on are you quickly to kind of leave the conversation? Or that's I guess I'm hearing from you.
yeah, I feel like it's because I think in the initial stages, I kind of feel like There's less investment, so it's easier to
Hmm.
run away.
Hmm.
But also it's
Hmm.
like, you know, maybe I'm holding it to unrealistically high standards, or just feeling too comfortable being on my own, and
Hmm. Hmm.
probably a mix of things. I'm
Okay.
sensing it's probably the avoidance side of me that's
Okay.
showing up.
So, um, what I'm hearing is it's possible that you like you kind of know on like on the inner level that like later in a relationship it's harder for you to leave. So if you can find a good excuse to kind of like leave early on, it's almost a way to like kind of save yourself from not being able to leave later.
I think so. I think that's
Okay.
probably accurate.
And then another thing you said is maybe a little too comfortable being on your own. Um, is it okay to be on your own?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, is it
Yeah, I
not?
get. No, I mean, I think it's yeah, I think it's great to like feel comfortable on your own and not really like have any pressure to do any of this. Like dating ideally should be fun, should be something that you like want to do because like you're actually engaged. I I think generally it's healthy to like take some time to get to know somebody and maybe work through those emotions that are saying, "Hey, run away." And like you don't even have to date these people. Like you can just like have a conversation with someone over a good period of time and then just be like, "Yeah, that was it. That's all, it was interesting. It was, but maybe this isn't what I needed, or maybe you'll meet a new friend. I don't know, and maybe you'll meet this friend and eventually start dating this friend. There's a lot of possibilities in there. Um, and there was a third example you gave that I missed. Do you remember what that was?
No. Sorry.
Okay, all right. Sorry, we missed that one. Maybe it'll
Okay.
come back. Um, So is there anything else kind of in here in terms of dating that you feel like we haven't addressed?
No, I feel like this has given me a lot to think about and a lot to reflect on, because um it's clarified for me where the pressure is coming from, and it's
Hmm.
clarified for me how my attachment style is playing into these things, and I guess what I can be more mindful of, what I can be more aware of. And I think that's good for me going forward. And another thing that's sort of just come up for me just in my head right now is maybe I'm treating this too much as a, okay, I'm setting a goal and I need to take this off, rather than
Hmm.
this is just something that I can allow to be organic and go at its own pace. And
Yeah.
it isn't about um, deciding that now I'm gonna date, so I need to make XYZ happen. Like, it's, I think,
Hmm.
just putting too much pressure on it all around.
Yeah. I can. Yeah. I guess in my mind, if you kind of have this checkbox and it's like, well, I want to date and I need to check this checkbox, and then you have this secondary fear that once you check the checkbox, you'll never be able to uncheck it. I could really understand how that could put a lot of pressure and make the part of you kind of, well, I don't want to check that checkbox. I don't want to complete this goal because it's just a system that doesn't sound like it's really made to succeed.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. Okay. So where do you want to go from here? We have 13 more minutes if you want to use them.
Um, I actually feel like I probably just want to go away and reflect on these things a bit more, because I feel like I've made good progress in this session, and I feel
Okay.
like it's sort of given me a new direction to.
Awesome. Yeah. That's that's
So
that's great.
I'm
So
actually happy to not talk about new things after this, because yeah, thank you, Dylan. This has been really enlightening.
awesome. I'm really glad it was helpful. And yeah, we'll check in later. And thank you for the conversation.
Thank you, Dylan. Thank you for your thoughts, for your insight. Thanks for being a great listener. And I just want to add, in the beginning, you have that disclaimer about, um, you know, not being a therapist and whatever, and if you need help, yeah, like, but I have to say this is helpful as well. Like, it is helpful to have a coach. It's helpful to have a conversation with a coach, and not look at things necessarily always through the lens of things being pathological or that sort of thing. And I really appreciate what you do here, so thank you for that.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Cool. Well, have a good day. And we'll talk later.
Thanks.
All right.
Yep. Bye.
Bye.